Good morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, January the 10th, 2024, at 9 a.m., and we are reconvening a special meeting of the Johnston County Board of Elections that was recessed on January the 3rd, 2024, approximately 9:30 a.m. The first item, I'd like for us all to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Just a little housekeeping before we get into it. There were candidate challenge procedure guidelines adopted at our last meeting, and now I would like to call the case of the candidate challenge in David Marshburn, Board of Education, District 7, filed by Ronald Johnston. And are there any preliminary matters that need to be considered?
Yes, I have a couple, Your Honor. First, there has been a submission, and you provided a flash drive of the printout.
Counselor, pardon me.
Excuse me. My name is Alan Tew. I represent the challenging party. I'm from Clayton. Thank you. I apologize.
Thank you, sir.
You provided a flash drive of the candidate challenge submissions printout here, and of course the purpose of this hearing is to receive evidence upon which you will make your decision. And so my first inquiry is what, if any, of this would be considered as evidence of what's been submitted. You've been provided with a flash drive, and you, I think there may be two, in any event, on the flash drive there are recordings of a podcast on Facebook, and so I need to distinguish, I guess, maybe to save time, to determine what, if any, of this constitutes admissible evidence in this record. So that's the first issue. The second is that there are charges in this that relate to GS 163-275, which relates to fraud in this. And I would take a dismissal without prejudice with regard to that. There'll be no evidence presented. So the only proceedings here deal with the first two statutes recited in the challenge, and those are 163-57 and 163-127.5. Then the third matter, and I have not seen it, but the third matter relates to Mr. O'Hale's motion in limine, motion to limit testimony of Mr. Marshburn's wife based on, I believe, based upon marital communication. So I would ask that that be addressed if and when any questions may be asked of her. Thank you.
Yes. Counsel, do you have?
Yes, sir. Good morning. I want to buy out some new chairs.
They just need to be raised about 6 inches.
For the benefit of the record, I'm John P. Jack O'Hale. I'm an attorney here in Smithfield. I represent Mr. Marshburn. For the benefit of the record, first of all, Mr. Tew is a very fine lawyer who I've known for years and practices in Clayton. I get them confused, you know. In any event, I did on Monday leave with your board counsel two motions, one of which is captioned, "Candidate David Marshburn's objections to subpoena duces taken." And secondly, another filing, candidates David Marshburn's motion in limine to exclude marital communications with his wife, Kimberly Marshburn. I filed them with your counsel's office. I also emailed copies of those to Mr. Johnston on Monday as well. I don't know how you want to address it or when you want to address it. I know that we have the burden of proof. I'm just curious, do you want us to go first, or will they offer their evidence first? Whatever you rule is fine with us, just so I got to clean up my desk a little bit and get my papers in order.
All right, sir.
That's it.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Your Honor, just one response. I think that the traditional procedure should be followed here, in that the burden of proof statutorily resides with the candidate, and so I would ask that you proceed as a normal civil adversarial proceeding would, with him carrying the burden by testifying first.
Right. This challenge was reviewed by the Board of Election at a regularly scheduled meeting on December the 14th, after it had been filed on December the 12th, and found that it needed to be heard by this board. At this time, I'd like for the director to give us an overview of the case, please. Leanne Price, Director of Elections.
You need to be sworn out.
You have a room?
And,
All right.
and while we're doing this, is there anyone that would like to give testimony in this proceeding? If so, please come forward and be sworn in at this time.
Go ahead, go forward, be sworn.
It's not saying you have to
Who
testify.
intends to
Madam Clerk
testify
will.
should be sworn.
You're good.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you shall give to the board shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Please state your names for the record, please, for each one.
Leanne Price,
David Marshburn.
Talon North.
Kimberly Marshburn.
Ronald Johnson.
Thank you.
good morning.
Good morning.
Excuse me, Mr. Shawcross.
Yeah.
As a point of order, for counsel, and this is going to be very unusual for them because they are used to standing to show respect to the court when they present their arguments and that sort of thing to counsel, but because this is being recorded and because of the microphones, it would be helpful if they could stay seated as they are making their arguments to the board, if that would be acceptable with you and acceptable with them.
Certainly.
I will do whatever I'm told, Your Honor.
Outstanding.
Okay, good morning. On December the 13th, 2023, Mr. Marshburn came in and filed his notice of candidacy with the Johnston County Board of Elections to seek the office of Johnston County Board of Education in District 7. I have a copy here of his notice of candidacy for y'all if you would like it.
And do both attorneys have a copy? Yeah, okay.
Yes, sir.
And one inquiry, if there would be multiple exhibits offered, would it would be helpful to have them numbered?
Okay? We can do that.
Mr. Shawcross, the clerk will assist with
Enter,
that.
yeah. Madam Clerk, would you please enter that as Exhibit 13, I guess it is.
Anything else you'd ask me?
No, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
All right, at this time, I'd like to call on Mr. Marshburn to present arguments and evidence in support of his qualifications to be a candidate for the office of school board, including residency.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be delighted to do that. I just don't know, do you want me to keep my client seated and examine him down here? Is that the way it works?
Yes, sir, you can remain seated too. You popped up again.
Can you find us a bigger chair, Mike? Oh, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
You now need to start walking again. All right, I'm ready to proceed, Mr. Chairman.
All right, please do.
All right, would you please state your name for the record and the Johnston County Board of Elections, please?
David Marshburn.
And Mr. Marshburn, how old are you?
I'm 48.
And where were you born and where were you reared?
I was born in Buffalo, New York, but reared in Clayton, North Carolina.
All right. And are you a citizen and resident of Johnston County, North Carolina?
Yes, sir.
All right. Have your civil rights been in any way revoked by conviction of any crime?
No, sir.
All right. Do you believe in God?
I do.
All right. Now, directing the issue before this board today, sometime in December of 2023, did you file for election to seek election to the Johnston County Board of Education?
I did.
All right. At the time that you made the decision to file for the Johnston County Board of Education, where was your residence?
708 South Robertson Street.
Okay. Now, before that, were you living somewhere else other than Robertson Street?
Yes, sir.
Where was that?
207 North 3rd Street, Smithfield.
Okay. Now, sometime prior to filing with the Johnston County Board of Elections for your candidacy for Board of Education, did you contact a Mr. Lipscomb in the town of Clayton for any reason?
I did December 7th.
And why did you contact Mr. Lipscomb?
I asked him, did he have a house for rent?
All right. And as a result of that discussion, did you eventually enter into a lease with Mr. Lipscomb to rent a dwelling?
I did.
And where is that dwelling located?
708 South Robertson Street, Clayton.
And there appears in the notebook that we've been furnished here today a copy of that lease. Have you seen that before?
Yes, sir.
And is that the lease you executed with Mr. Lipscomb?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, when precisely did you file for the seat of the Johnston County Board of Education?
December 13th, 2023.
When was that lease executed?
December 13th, 2023.
All right. Now, did you have in December of 2023 a valid North Carolina driver's license?
I did.
What was the address of your residency at that time?
207 North 3rd Street, Smithfield, North Carolina.
All right. Since that time, did you apply to the North Carolina Division of Motor Vehicles for a new driver's license with your new correct address on it?
I have.
All right. And when was that done?
That was done a week or two ago. I had a certain amount of time to do it by law.
All right. So have you applied for a new driver's license with the Robertson Street address on it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you received that in the mail yet?
No, sir.
All right. Now, sometime after filing for your candidacy in December of 2023 and taking possession or moving into the residence that you leased from Mr. Lipscomb, did some sort of catastrophe occur at that residence?
Yes, sir.
And could you please explain to the members of the board what happened?
On December 13th, I leased the house. And I had to have a written lease in order to get the power cut on. I got that, went to town of Clayton, asked them to cut the power on. I requested not to cut the water on because I didn't know what shape it was in or anything, and it's cold. Somehow, either they cut it on and cut it right back off, or whatever water was remaining in the pipes froze and got all over the house, and the central area, the hallway, one back room, and the kitchen.
Did the pipes burst? The pipe actually burst?
Yeah, it was, you cut the water on, it would just go crazy, like fizzing.
Right. And what sort of damage was done to the residence as a result of the bursting pipe?
Well, the house was built back in the 60s, which had all plywood construction, which is layers of wood glued. And that's the main thing, is all the flooring system come apart and all the linoleum and flooring just separated.
So as a result of the damage that occurred as a result of this bursting pipe, were you able to immediately begin actually physically residing in that residence?
No, sir.
Okay. What, if anything, have you done to remedy the issues that occurred as a result of this bursting pipe?
What I did, I took out most of the furniture that I did put in there and my clothes because they had spotted mold on it. And I moved everything out into another room, and then I started tearing up the flooring, getting the insulation out and taking out the pipes.
All right. And has that repair process for the most part been completed now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is the house now inhabitable?
Yes, sir.
All right. Did you employ any professional tradesman, a plumber or heating and air specialist to assist you in that matter?
I did.
Who was that?
Wayne Lee with Lee Heating and Air Company.
Okay. And what did Mr. Lee have to do?
Mr. Lee found out the cause of the HVAC tripping out was the wire was actually laying in water under the house. And then for the pipes, he just suggested we take out the piping and repipe it with PEX pipe.
Objection, move to strike. Hearsay.
Well, I'll rephrase the question. What repairs have been made that you're personally aware of to the residence that you have leased?
Plumbing, HVAC, flooring, floor joist, and sheetrock,
Now,
and painting.
have you today brought with you photographs of the residence in question?
Yes, sir.
All right, and would you like to see these, Alan?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Just a moment.
Mr. Toots, would you bring those to the,
Actually, Mr. Chairman, what I would be respectful,
you don't need to stand up.
yeah, to
I'll
have,
relieve him.
have my client come before you in the presence of Mr. Tu to explain what the photographs depict.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and I have no objection.
Be sure.
Sorry.
No, I just don't want you falling, you know.
Thank you.
If everybody's gonna fall, it's gonna
I
be,
want you to clear yourself out. You have nothing to-
you're a great American.
What number would those exhibits be?
14.
Thank you. Thank you, Honor.
I would think.
Doesn't have a sink.
Doesn't have any countertops either.
Yeah, oh, I see.
Each one, bring each one to the, Thank you. Yes, there were countertops. but They're not countertops. Go ahead.
If the chair would allow me, in the interest of time, I would represent to you that should my client testify, he would testify that he took all the photographs in question. They fairly and accurately portray the interior.
There's no objection.
Okay.
All right.
So I,
Thank you.
okay, thank you. Now, I will resume my very comfortable seat.
And don't
Now,
let it-
you indicated to us earlier, Mr. Marshburn, that you had a North Carolina driver's license with an address of 207 North 3rd Street. Is that right?
Correct.
All right. Now, what type of residence is that in 207 North 3rd Street?
It's an apartment that I had made with a full kitchen, washroom, bathroom, full bath, living room, and bedroom.
All right. Now, is that apartment attached to also to your business address?
It is.
Okay. Now, have you vacated that apartment?
Yes, sir.
Did you do so with the intent to permanently abandon that residence?
I did.
And have you done so?
Yes, sir.
And when you abandoned that residence, is that when you acquired the lease from your renter at the address on Robertson Street in Clayton, North Carolina?
Yes, sir.
All right. And is it your intent to make that new domicile your permanent domicile?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, I have here your North Carolina driver's license as it existed back in December of 2023, as well as, are you familiar with another document, a temporary driving certificate issued by the state of North Carolina, valid through March the 2nd, 2024?
Yes, sir.
All right. And is that your new temporary driving privilege that was issued to you by the Division of Motor Vehicles?
Yes, sir.
All right, and does that indicate that your new residence address is 708 South Robertson Street, Clayton, North Carolina, 27520?
Yes, sir.
Does it also indicate that your mailing address is 2095 Twin Acres Road, Clayton?
Yes, sir.
Now, you send mail or have mail delivered to the address at Twin Acres, that's because where your wife resides?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, with
Counselor,
the...
can we have that?
Yes, sir, and I've made, and I'll give a copy to Mr. Two as well. Brought one, I didn't know he was gonna be here, but we got one. Yeah, yeah. All right, and we would ask that, at the clerk at the appropriate time, redact the driver's license number from the public record. There's the driver's license. And there's the new.
Lisa, Exhibit 15,
Yes.
do you have a copy?
I'll get a copy for you right now.
Okay.
If I have them, I'll give it to you.
Okay, thank you.
There you go. May I approach?
Please. Thank you, sir.
Now, Mr. Marshburn, who did you lease your apartment to?
I leased it to Mr. Matthews.
All right, and that was for a minimum period of 1 year, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And so you no longer reside in the apartment on North 3rd Street?
I do not.
All right, where are you residing now?
At 708 South Robertson Street, Clayton.
All right. Now, the house has not been completely rehabbed, but is it rebuilt such that it's now habitable?
It is. We have just a little bit left to go.
All right. Now, did you incur expenses, out-of-pocket expenses, to rehab that rental dwelling?
Yes, sir.
And would you please share with the members of the board the amount of money that you spent out of pocket to rehab that residence?
Approximately $4,100.
All right. You have receipts today from Lowe's. If
Yes.
anybody would like to see those.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, in addition to employing Mr. Lee to come and work on your dwelling, did you employ anybody else to monitor the construction at your new residence?
Yes, sir.
Who was that?
Top to bottom inspections.
And is that Talton Art?
That is Taunton Art.
And he's present today.
Yes, sir.
And what, if anything, to your knowledge, did Mr. Art do?
Mr. Art did the testing of the moisture levels in the wood and the rooms, so that way we could control the humidity in there for the new construction and for mold and mildew.
All right. Now, based upon the abandonment of your prior dwelling, your acquisition of the new rental home, is it your intent to make the residence that you have rented on Robertson Street your permanent domicile?
Yes, sir.
Have you paid in full the first month's rent?
Yes, sir.
And that was $800, I believe.
Yes, sir.
All right. No other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On the lease, it says that the term is beginning, the beginning date is 12/13/2023. The ending date of lease is 1/13/2024, which is Saturday.
Yes, ma'am. And you will notice it's to continuing 30-day terms. The reason that it occurred that way is initially there was going to be an apartment that Mr. Marshburn was going to live in, and then the apartment wasn't suitable, so the landlord rented him this dwelling, but it's for continuing periods of 30 days.
Your Honor,
Because we didn't know when the dwelling would be completed.
Your Honor, I would object to the admissibility of the evidence, which is a question that should be answered by Mr. Marshburn. We're talking about admissible evidence, and so I think he's the one who should testify in response to any questions other than questions relating to procedure or legal issues.
Two things, Madam Board Member. Number one, I would point out that the lease was put in the notebook that was furnished to you all at an earlier time. And number two, I have absolutely no objection you questioning Mr. Marshburn on any reason.
You want me to answer you?
Please.
It's on a every 30 day, and James normally does that with well, that's what he's told me. He does that with most of his leases. But
Motion to strike what James Lipscomb told them, that's hearsay clearly.
Okay.
all right, so I wanted an apartment that he had, but it wasn't available. So he said he had 708.
Objection to what James Lipscomb says.
Okay. I wound up at 708 South Robertson Street. I looked at it and accepted it verbally on the 7th of December.
So, you're going to be reimbursed by Lipscomb, right?
No, ma'am. That's part of the agreement that I get a low rent, monthly rent, which 800 is very low in that area, and I take care of anything that happens to the house.
Wow,
So that's why I'm doing all the work myself.
right. And why do you still have your mail sent to 2095 Twin Acres?
Star's the smart one. She's the one that handles the bills and everything, so I am very forgetful. I've got so much going on with my private investigation work and all, I'm just very forgetful. So I make sure it's sent to her so I don't forget. Sort of like having a secretary too, but
So was the mail sent there when you were at 207 North 3rd Street?
yes, mail was sent to 2095 Twin Acres Road. We still get mail at the 207 North 3rd, but that's the business stuff. Yes, ma'am.
And what is your relationship to the Twin Acres address?
Actually, my name's on the deed. Since 2001, my grandparents gave me that land, and I built a home on it. And my wife and I were not married at the time. And Twin Acres is named after my great-grandparents. They gave the land to my grandmother, and her sister. That's how it became Twin Acres Road. So in 2008, my wife and I got married. We never changed the deed. And if you know anything about power bills, any type of utility bill like cable or anything, if your name's not on the deed, you can't apply for that. So I've always had to keep everything going to 2095 Twin Acres Road, and it's still in my name. We just never switched it over.
And I guess the question for me is, why don't you live there?
My wife and I live apart, and it works for us. And there's certain personal reasons why, but it very much works for us. I do get on her nerves a lot. I'm very energetic, and I joke a lot, but it just works for us. It's worked for us for years. And I think if we were together in the same house all the time, yeah, we'd be over with. But, you know, our son's 14. He understands. So I'm there in between both places all the time. When I was at 207 North 3rd Street, my shop is in the back where I remodel or reconstruct old classic cars. So I'm doing all kinds of things. So I'm always around. But we have separate living situations. Yes,
At
ma'am.
which residence do you spend the majority of your time?
At which the 207 North 3rd Street. If you wanted to find me, that's where you'd find me.
That's your business.
Where do you predominantly return to at the end of your day's work?
It's 708 South Robertson Street.
I have one question. You
Yes.
said you have leased 207 North 3rd Street?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Two, would you like to cross-examine the witness?
Before we
sir.
do that,
Oh.
may I ask just one clarifying,
Certainly.
to keep the record clear, your return to the residence on Robertson Street has just begun to occur because you just finished the rehabilitation of that dwelling, is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, I want to focus on where you spend your time and what you do when you're at these different places. First, the history of this land. Joyce Ellis was a daughter of John Ellis, and she inherited that land, which is developed, I think, and has a name. What is the name of that?
St. John's Wood.
St. John's Woods.
Yes, sir.
And your grandmother was married to Alan Marshman Sr.,
Correct.
and they gave you a deed for Lot 5 of St. John's Woods.
Correct.
And that was recorded in February 7 of 2001. and there's a plat of that and recorded that shows the dimensions of the lot.
Is that in evidence?
I'm asking him on
Okay, I
cross-examination.
mean, you just gave us a book. I just wanted to know if it was in this book somewhere.
It is in the book, but procedurally, I have not offered it into evidence.
Okay.
And at the appropriate time, I will do that. I'm just cross-examining unless they want to admit it into evidence. What is exhibit number 1?
Thank you.
If Mr. O'Hale would like to look at that, it may save us some time. Jack, if you'll look in tab 1, there's exhibit 1 in the notebook I gave you.
I'm familiar with the real estate, and I have no objection to that.
Okay, so if you would turn to that exhibit 1, which is tab 1, you'll see the first 2 pages are the deed to David Marshburn. And then the 3rd page, if you'll look at the right-hand side, you'll see a lot that shows a driveway and a house, a semicircular driveway and a house, and that's the property. Correct, Mr.
Correct.
Marshman? Then if you look at the tax office bill, that's total market value of the house and lot at $248,640, and that's a tax valuation. So it consists of, how many acres is that?
It's 1.5 acres or 1.75, something like that.
Now, return to exhibit number 2 in there. Is that a picture of your house?
Number 2 be behind that tab right there.
That is a picture.
Okay, and so you've got a semicircular drive, and you've got nice landscape. It's a beautiful, beautiful house. Okay, then I would ask you to look at exhibit number 3. And that is that the deed from your dad? Your mother, Joan Hill Marshburn, died a few years ago, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so Alan has conveyed to you an additional property. This was a gift, as was the first.
No, sir.
It was?
No, sir, I had to buy it.
Okay, excuse me. I look up there, excise tax, and so you paid probably, what would that be, $2,000?
Yes, sir.
$2,000. And what is the size of this lot? There's a copy of a plat behind that. What's the size of that?
4.56 acres.
Okay. And where is that in relation to your house?
To the property, it surrounds it and goes right back out, further up the road.
Is it behind your house?
It is behind the house.
Okay. Now, at one time you did construction work, did you not?
Always.
Okay. So if you look at the next page after the plat, you'll look at the tax office, and the total market value for that property is $69,010. Is that accurate?
There's no structure on that land.
I understand,
Okay.
and it shows just the value of land. That's
Correct.
Okay, now, so you've got $248,640. Add to that another approximately $70,000. You've got property that's worth on the tax value over $300,000, maybe $350,000.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then the final document there is the another tax card that just shows the value to be the $69,000. $100,000. Now, there is no mortgage on that property, is there?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, I want you to turn and look at exhibit number 4. Okay. You are living, you are claiming a residence and therefore a domicile at 708 and 708 Robertson Street. If you'll look at the first page is a deed for that property. If you'll look at that, who is the owner of that property?
At this time,
Yes, sir.
Barbara Fierro, Sergio.
Is that who you leased it from?
No, sir.
Who did you lease it from?
James Lipscomb.
Does James Lipscomb own the property?
Yes, sir.
Do you have proof of that?
Yes, sir.
Where is it?
Call him. I mean,
Do you
why would
have
he?
it here
Well,
with
He
you?
let me
did a
ask you a
lease.
question.
He did a lease. I mean, if he did a lease without owning it, then he's
Do you
committing
have
a
the
crime.
lease?
Yes, sir.
May I see the lease?
Did you not get a number?
I don't think it was in.
Hang on, I'll get you one.
Thank you.
You're welcome. There it is.
Indulge me for a moment, Your Honor.
Sure.
This is the first time I've seen this.
Madam Clerk, go ahead and enter these while we're waiting. Thank you very much.
That's not even the right property. That's not even the property.
Do you have a copy of this lease that you could refer to, Mr. Marshman?
No, we just gave you our copy.
Okay.
And you want me to tell him? You want me to tell him?
Yeah, no.
This is what you
Uh,
tell McClain, this is being responsible.
Mr. Two,
Excuse me.
Mr. Two,
Yes,
this isn't even the right property you pulled up here.
you just,
Yes, okay.
Let's let him look at this.
That's not everything I gave you, though.
What? This is what you handed to me.
No, there was more documents attached to it.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
You're right.
Yeah, this is a new customer. Two more pages. Make sure that's all of it.
I think there was some other pages attached to it, but the information on that did
Yeah,
not.
here they are, utilities.
Yeah. Yeah, that was attached to it, too. Thank you.
Okay, look at the first page of the lease, if you will, please, and tell me where on there you see the initial term, and what is that initial term? And it's got, on the left, it says initial term. Give me the date, beginning date of that.
What specifically?
Oh. 12/13/2023.
Okay, and then what is the ending date of the lease?
1/13/2024.
Okay, now let's look down at termination and renewal. If you'll find that in the lower 1/3 of the first page.
Mm-hmm.
It can be terminated under A within 30 days from the initial term.
Correct. Within any 30 days.
So, all right, so the initial term was 30 days, and it could be terminated within 30 days written notice prior. That makes sense, does it?
Yeah, it makes plenty of sense.
So you've got initial lease of 30 days, but that's the initial term, and the initial term can be terminated with 30 days written notice.
But it continues on and on for
Well,
30 days
let's-
after.
Let's get to that.
Well, let him answer your question now that you propounded to him. Go ahead.
Okay, fine, please proceed.
And that's the way a lot of landlords do, me included, because then if the person doesn't pay, it doesn't take so long to get them out, evict them.
The renewal, what is the renewal?
Every 30 days.
Because so then it's accurate to say that this is a 30-day lease.
No, sir. It's an open lease every 30 days.
Well, it can be terminated.
It can, any of them can, but this is a month to month.
Okay, so you're planning, you offered into evidence these photographs of a place that has been gutted for whatever reason. How much money have you spent there?
Approximately $4,100.
Okay. And what do you anticipate spending?
Approximately 1,100 more.
Okay, so the photographs that I saw showed a water tank that was rotted at the bottom, that had been rusted out, and there's a problem in there. It showed the floor joists. So are you telling me that you are going to put in flooring on that?
I already have.
Okay, and that the cost of the flooring and other items were $4,100?
Yes, sir. I've got the receipts and pictures, more pictures.
So, you rented this house,
Yes,
and
sir.
you took the responsibility for whatever happened there.
Mhm.
Well, now, I'm going to object to the offering of this lease in evidence, because if you look, how many pages are in this lease? look at the second page at the bottom of the page.
8 of 8, and that's how many
So
again?
you're missing the rest of the lease agreement. And if you will, look at,
Now, Mr. Chu, you're testifying now. We got 8 of 8 pages right here. Now, some of them are blank pages, but they're 8 of 8 pages.
well, I would object.
Well, you wanted to see the document. There it is. There's 8 of 8 pages there.
Okay. Look at page 8 at the top in paragraph 32. And read what that says.
Why don't you show me what you're referring to? so-
I'm talking, look at the second page, which at the bottom says 8 of 8.
Okay.
And look at the top, and I'm asking your client, what does paragraph 32 say,
You want me to read it?
please?
Entire agreement. This agreement contains the entire agreement of the parties, and there are no representations, inducements, or other provisions other than those expressed in writing. All changes, additions, or deletions hereto must be in writing and signed by all parties.
Now, Mr. O'Hale says that the rest of the pages are blank. Is that accurate?
Well, I'm not testifying or giving evidence. We handed you 8 pages. It's your observation to make.
Well, I'm asking him if he will look at the 8 pages that consist of
Within the
lease.
8 pages, there is who takes care of the yard, who does this, and there's boxes marked. And I had that within these 8 pages.
Well, for the record here,
Did you give it to them?
you don't have anything else. Correct?
For the record here, we got out of the notebook what was in the notebook that was furnished to us. And that was my understanding when he applied to the town of Clayton for power and water, he had to have a lease.
We'll deal with that. Now, the house that you're living in, is a one-story house, and its address is 708 South Robertson Street,
Yes, sir.
and it is behind a larger house which actually sits on Robertson Street. So this is behind the house on Robertson Street, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and if you turn to the page, Exhibit 4, it's the 4th page. You recognize the GIS maps?
Yes, sir.
And is this an aerial photo showing the location of 708?
It shows it, but you highlighted the wrong one.
If you look at that, look at the map, the aerial photo, and it has one house and it has 610. Okay, that's a house on Robertson Street, correct?
Correct?
Okay, and then if you look behind it, that is 708. And
No,
that-
sir. That is not, that house goes along with the 610 house. They're actually renting that house in the back. It goes with this house. My house goes straight down this dirt path, all the way back in the woods. The house is behind these 2 houses.
So why is it then that there is another address? Do you know why?
I don't know how they got it
Okay.
set up. I know 708 is the brick house in the back.
All right. Now, you have a Facebook page, and on that Facebook page, you broadcast commentary from time to time, and you've done that for how many years?
Several.
Well, would it be 5 years?
At least.
Okay, and I believe you use that as a political as a place to promote your candidacy for the sheriff in the last sheriff's election, correct?
That was part of it.
Okay. Now, you got, describe the equipment that you have in your house.
Well,
Objection.
at that
Whoa, whoa,
time,
whoa, whoa, whoa. Objection to the form of the question. His
Okay.
wife lives in the other house,
Okay.
okay? Now, are you asking, does he have a
I'll
studio?
I'll clarify.
Thank you.
Where is your studio located?
right now, 2095 Twin Acres Road.
And it's been located at that address for all the time that you have broadcast?
No, sir. No, sir. It just recently got moved there. Matter of fact, I believe Mr. Johnston put in here, he saw a door in the background. That's when I first put the stuff in that area at 2095 Twin Acres Road.
Okay, now, you have broadcast from that location where you own the house and your wife lives there.
My wife owns that house. I mean, it might be on my name, but she owns it.
Well,
It's hers.
if you look in the public records, it's
Right.
listed in your name,
Okay,
so you own it as a matter of public record.
yes.
Okay, now, you were delivering podcasts during the sheriff's election from that location, were you not?
No, sir.
Where were you?
I was at 207 North 3rd Street in the front room.
Now, the video clips which have been provided on the recordings on the thumb drive that was presented here and will be offered in evidence was done from your wife's home, where you say she owns it, but the home at Twin Acres, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, let me, if you will indulge me a moment. You filed on December the 13th, excuse
Correct.
me, the 12th, or was it the 13th?
13th.
Okay. And on December the 12th, you, in your podcast, made a statement that you do have a domicile in the town of Clayton.
That was December 14th.
Bear with me. I'm sorry. The podcast is on December the 28th. You had a podcast, and in that podcast, you stated, "I am running in District 7 because I do have a domicile in the town of Clayton." So that was 15 days after you filed.
That's what this
Is that
paper
accurate?
says.
Sir?
Wouldn't this be hearsay too? Because I don't have a copy of the,
Okay, excuse me, I'm sorry. If you will, turn to Exhibit 5, which is identified as a transcription of video clips.
okay?
And if you will turn to the third page at the bottom, read that to yourself, and then let me ask you.
Mr. Shawcross, I would respectfully suggest the best evidence would be whatever the clip shows, and you all watch it and make your determination.
And we have that. I will then present it at the appropriate time. But I'm going to ask you, did you state at any time during any of these podcasts that you had a domicile in Clayton?
I'm sure I did.
Okay. So, your intention is to live permanently in this house,
Yes, sir.
in 708, correct?
Yes, sir.
Have no further questions on cross-examination, Your Honor?
All right, thank you.
May I ask two
Would
follow-up
you
questions?
like to redirect?
Yes, sir. All right, two things. You've indicated for the members of the board, Mr. Marshburn, that you spent what you feel to be about approximately $4,100 out of your pocket to purchase from Lowe's material to fix up this house, rehab this house. Is that correct?
Correct.
Who did all the labor?
I did.
Did you hire anybody to help you or do anything else?
I hired a Hispanic guy that's worked for James Lipscomb, worked for me for years, and he knows how to paint, so I hired him. I hired Wayne Lee with Lee Heating and Air to do the heating and air and plumbing, and I hired Talton Arp to oversee the moisture levels.
In addition to the monies you spent with materials, you had to pay out of pocket for those people as well, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have any idea, based upon your experience as represented by Mr. Tu, the construction, how much the total cost would have been had you employed somebody to rehab the house to do the labor, what that would have cost?
It's usually double, if not a little bit more on that, so I would give a good guesstimate of $10,000.
Now, one other question, and I'll hush. The question was propounded to you by a member of the board with respect to why it is that you do not live in the residence that is occupied by your wife.
And
You remember that question?
I do,
All right.
and I tried to stay away from it, but since it's so public, but my wife has a medical condition that keeps us at each other, if we are around each other real for a long time, so that's the reason.
If I may redirect, and also I do have one that I did not explore, and if I can ask that now, fine. If not, I can call him as an adverse witness, how it should be. So I'll go first to the new matter that was brought up. What is a medical diagnosis which causes you and your wife to live separate and apart?
Crohn's disease.
Crohn's disease?
Yes, sir.
Is Crohn's disease a mental disease?
Objection. He asked what the medical condition was. If we're going to get into any in-depth personal information, I'd ask that this room be cleared and we have a voir dire between the board, with the board, you determine what's admissible and what's not admissible.
I'd have to say question asked and answered.
Well, respectfully, I don't believe that it has. He's described a condition, a medical condition. I've asked for the diagnosis, and then I can ask, I believe, what are the symptoms that substantiate the diagnosis?
We would object.
I don't think that's relevant to what we're trying to establish here today. The candidate was asked a question. He gave a reasonable explanation as to why they're living apart, in our opinion, and I mean, that, in our opinion, that substantiates the question of residency as to why they're living apart.
Well, Your Honor, I respectfully disagree with this regard. You look at the facts. Man has a substantial value in a house that he has lived in, and for this reason, he and she have no longer live together. Where do you sleep, and where you sleep is a significant part. Why you leave a house like this based on a medical condition, I think, is significant because it would justify or not, or certainly have an impact on why you are apart. I have an understanding of what Crohn's disease is, and I believe that it is relevant. So respectfully, I disagree. Let's proceed, but I would like to put that in the record after the fact.
That's fine.
And I would respectfully counter that, Mr. Tu. The only issue before this board today is three parts. One, whether it's an actual abandonment of the first domicile coupled with an intent to return to the first domicile. Two, the acquisition of a new domicile by actual residence at another place. And three, the intent of making the newer domicile a permanent domicile. Those are the questions.
Well, respectfully, the basis for the separation and the credibility of the witness is at issue.
Respectfully, we contend that that's not relevant on Rule 401 of the Rules of Evidence of North Carolina.
Okay. The other, and I can either do this as cross-examination or have him declared to be, as a matter of law, an adverse witness, since he is opposing the challenge. So,
Judge, we have made an objection, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, we made an objection. I'd stand up courteously, but I have to sit back down. You've ruled on it. I think we should move on.
I agree, let's move on.
I would like to, I then will call him as an adverse witness,
Okay.
and would ask that you acknowledge by virtue of the fact as a matter of law, he is an adverse witness, and that the party challenging, he is the one who's being challenged.
Judge, I would, or Mr. Chairman, I would point out respectfully that we did file a motion in limine pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 8-56, and would respectfully tell this tribunal that it is a marital privilege. What goes on in this, the context of a marriage? We answered one question specifically because a specific question was posed by a board member.
Your Honor, I can preempt this. It's not about that. I'm not going to pursue that. You have testified that,
Well, wait a minute. It's not your turn to put on evidence. My case is still going on. I've asked no other questions. Are you going to, my case is rested. Are you going to start putting on evidence now?
okay, that's fine. I'll call him as an adverse witness. You've testified that you...
Well, yeah, it's my understanding that we did call Mr. Marshburn to present his argument and evidence, and then we offered you and Mr. Johnston the opportunity to be heard. Now, it's my understanding that when you enable Mr. O'Hale to cross-examine, that was basically the procedures that we were going to follow. Now I understand you're wanting another bite at the apple. Is that correct?
Your Honor, I am entitled to present evidence, so this is a presentation of my evidence. It is not, I said that I had completed my cross-examination, so that's fine. I don't get to do it there. I'm calling him as an adverse witness, which I have a right to do, and as an adverse witness, he can be examined as I would a cross-examination.
Point of order. Let me get a little legal advice, please.
So your candidate procedural guidelines basically allow the challenger, who has the burden of proof in this particular matter, to present his case. And then should the challenger, Mr. Johnson, wish to present evidence, he could do that at that time. And so it's the board's, it's up to the board as to whether or not you want Mr. O'Hale to go ahead and finish his case, which I recommend, because that's what your candidate procedural guidelines entail. And then Mr. Tu and Mr. Johnston will have the opportunity to call witnesses and to present their evidence, should they so choose, once Mr. O'Hale's case in chief is complete.
And excuse me, I assumed, and apparently wrongfully so, that you had not completed your presentation of evidence. And if so, fine, I will do that at the appropriate time when it becomes my turn. I apologize.
No, respectfully, I did communicate to this board that I had no other questions, and Mr. Tu cross-examined the Mr. Marshburn, and then I asked for additional information. So I would declare, for the benefit of the record, we have rested our case. Thank you, sir.
So with that, then, I would
Let's wait till
cross-examine or call,
to hear what evidence they're going to present, and then we can ask our questions.
call Mr. Marshman as an adverse witness. Wayne Lee was subpoenaed by virtue of a subpoena issued earlier, correct?
Yes.
And he was served, correct?
Yes.
He has been released, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, yesterday,
Well, do you want to know the reason he was released? He has a doctor's appointment.
what?
He has a doctor's appointment, didn't think he could be here.
Yes.
Objection. It's hearsay.
Call him up and ask him.
Did you meet with Wayne Lee yesterday at Mr. O'Hale's office?
Actually, he met us. I didn't know he was coming.
Okay. And did you talk with him at that time?
Yes.
Okay. And did you have occasion to talk with him individually?
Yes.
In just you and him?
Yes.
Okay. And after that conversation, or during the conversation, you asked him about certain testimony and ultimately released him after you talked with him, correct?
No, I don't. I mean, have you got specific?
I'm just asking you if you talked
No,
with him, and after talking with him, did you release him?
No, I didn't release him. Mr. Jack did.
Okay, so as a result of that meeting,
He had
So-
a doctor's appointment.
so as a result of that meeting, that you, when you talked with him, you released him, correct? He was released.
He was
Okay.
released by him.
Thank you.
Would you like to know why he was
I don't
released?
have any further questions.
Would you like to know why he was released?
Not really.
Well, he has a doctor's appointment this morning at 8 o'clock. He said he didn't make it.
All right. I would call as a witness Ronald Johnson.
You call Mr. Johnson for the, and would you, Mr. Johnson, would you please identify yourself, your name and address, and for the record, are you eligible to vote in the District 7?
Ronald Lee Johnston, Jr., 423 Westminster Drive, Clayton, North Carolina. I am eligible to vote in District 7.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Johnson, state your name, please.
Ronald Lee Johnston, Jr.
Okay, and tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you've lived, your education, your work history.
Yes, sir. Again, my name is Ronald Lee Johnston Jr. I grew up in Smithfield. I currently live in Clayton at 423 Westminster Drive. I have resided and lived there for approximately 10 years, since 2013, with my wife, Jamie Johnson. My family consists of my mother, stepmother, father, and 2 brothers and sisters that all reside in the county.
Okay.
I was formerly a Smithfield police officer, a college business professor, and I'm currently a graduation manager and training advisor at Blue Line Aviation at Johnston County Airport.
Now, do you know Mr. Marshburn?
I know of Mr. Marshburn. I do not know him personally, and I don't think we've had any personal encounters within the last 5 years.
Now, what brings us here to challenge this?
I do not believe Mr. Marshburn is domiciled in District 7 of the Board of Education election districts.
Now, Jack, I've got the exhibits 1 through 4 that we talked about and would ask that they be identified. I mean, admitted in evidence.
Just bear with me one moment.
Okay?
Okay, Exhibit 1 you refer to as the warranty deed.
And, yes.
All right. Exhibit number 2 is a photograph of a residence.
Well, excuse me, that's a part of number 1.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Well, I
Well,
got it.
excuse me, it's not. There are 3 documents in 1. That's the 2 pages of the deed and a copy of the plat and a copy of the tax valuation. Those 4.
Yeah, and there's no objection to those documents.
Okay, the next is a photograph of the house, which is identified.
No objection, that's been identified.
The next is a copy of a deed from his dad with the plat, 2 pages following that. And then the tax office valuation and then the tax card.
Now, where is that?
That's Exhibit 3, first page, 2 pages of the deed.
Okay.
The 3rd page is a copy of the plat. and
Correct.
The next page is, and then the final
Yeah.
document is tax.
And ours said that we had no objection to that.
Okay, that's fine. Then the 4th is a copy of a deed and the GIS aerial and the GIS map.
Respectfully, Mr. Chairman, we'd object to exhibit number 4 under Rule 401 of the Rules of Evidence. That's not material to this case. This does not involve any thing that is owned by Mr. Marshburn, and has not been identified by anybody as to who actually owns that property or who actually lives at that property. And as my client pointed out to Mr. Tu earlier, he believed that he identified the wrong parcel. So we would object. I don't see that as any relevance. And that is a piece of property that is identified in red as part of that exhibit, and that's what we also object to as not being correct, respectfully.
We will exclude item 4.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I have exhibit number 5, and I will question my client about this. Tell what you did relating to the videos on Facebook by Mr. Marshburn?
Yes, sir. I would wait for Mr. Marshburn to complete his Facebook Live broadcast, and in order to preserve them, I would download them using an application online called Facebook Downloader. Once it was downloaded, I would be able to view it, and if Mr. Marshburn decided to delete the content, I would still have a copy of it. I would take those videos and provide them. They are provided to you today in a folder that says full videos, and then I would clip the relevant parts using my iPhone or my laptop.
Okay, and were these loaded onto a thumb drive that was provided?
Yes, I provided them to Miss Leanne, and to my knowledge, she has provided them to everyone.
Now, did you go back and copy portions of the transcripts that relate to the issue here, and that is residence?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. And are they provided on the thumb drive?
Yes, sir, they were.
Do you have the transcripts that you're referring to?
That's exhibit number 5, Jack.
Well, these are
Clips,
clips.
yes.
Do we have a transcript that was, a total transcript prepared by somebody?
No, the,
So why don't you just go ahead and show the video then?
well, you want to sit for 8 hours?
It's your case. You do what you want.
Well, I'm offering the transcript in evidence.
Mr. Shawcross, for point of clarification, and Mr. Two and Mr. Johnson can help us with this, but I understand that Mr. Johnson did provide a flash drive to Ms. Price. We had that flash drive scanned, and there are relevant portions. I think there were 2 different sets of information that were provided on the flash drive. One was a full recording of numerous hours, and then there were additional clips that were segmented, that I believe is probably what Mr. Two is referring to. If the board is so inclined to view those videos, and if Mr. Two wants to offer those, I understand that our technology team has those videos available for the board, and I just wanted to add that as a point of clarification, assuming that there's no difference between what was originally provided by Mr. Johnston and what Mr. Two has on this particular flash drive.
So, Mr. Johnson, your testimony here today is that these are unaltered?
Unaltered, yes, sir.
All right. It's a pleasure.
See the clips?
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
pleasure. We'd like to, we'll start seeing the clips with those.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor, and I would offer that in evidence as Exhibit 5 for the challenger. Now, let me direct the attention to whoever is operating this. There are file names, and I begin with file name 2023 .12.14.clip 1.
The big news is, the reason why I got these telephone calls was because they were telling me Ronald's playing games again. I said, well, I know. I stated that if Ronald Johnston runs again, I'm going to run against him. Now, how do I do that? If I'm not in his district, how do I do that? Because now they got districts. Well, you follow the rules. You go by the rules. And that's what I did. I am a resident. I have a residence in his district. And I have already filed. I filed Wednesday.
Next,
Mr. Two, I don't see that clip.
It's right here.
it's page
Excuse me,
one.
it was stuck to the tab. Thank you.
I apologize.
Got you.
It's
I'm
tab.
I'm on the same page now.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Yeah, let's keep it that way. Okay, if you would, then file name 2023.12.14, clip 2.
I think that's it. So whether I know some media will try and turn things around about oh, well, you're not living in the district. Well, yeah, I am. I got a lease. I got a rental. I'm renting. It's a residence. It's my residence. So, hey, you don't like the rules? Change them. That's what it is. You need to look up the legal law dictionary, legal definition of residence and domicile. You're so caught up on legal things, Ronald Johnston. Look that up in your little book. You try to be lawyer and you don't even know half the shit you're talking about. So, but look that up. A definition is a definition. And if you don't like it, change the rules. You already didn't like where you're in districts. You should have been happy about that. Because you've been like, Marshburn's not going to come in here. He's not going to be here. Well, yeah, I'm going to go by the rules, and I'm going to follow the rules. And that's what the rules are. So, I want to be like Chevy Chase, and you know when he's standing there in Christmas Vacation, he's got his drink in his hand at the holiday party, and all the big wigs are coming by, and I'd like.
Next, file clip name 2023.12.18, clip 1.
And it does. Attitude does make the difference in everything you do. So anyway, I've been on here way too long. Jesus. I meant that in a good way, by the way, when I said Jesus. I've been on here for 1 hour 52 minutes. So I think I've answered everything. Anything anybody else wants to know, it's too late. You can't ask me because I'm fixing to get off of here and enjoy some sleep. But no matter what happens in any election or any kind of setting like that, changing of guards is going to happen.
Next, file name 2023.12.20 AM, clip 1.
No, I don't. I shouldn't have to prove anything. But there's a lot of celebrities in this world that have 2 residences. There's nothing wrong with it. If you can afford it, do it. Hey, the stars tickled to death to get a break from me. So it's great. But
File name 2023.12.20, clip 2.
I wouldn't be doing all this work if I didn't have the intention of staying there permanently. So,
File name 2023.12.20, clip 3.
I am so late on getting back over there to do some more painting, I swear. But anyway, let me finish.
File name 2023.12.20, clip 4.
Little grievance that he has against me holds up I'd walk away. But I doubt it's not going to happen because that's my residence. That's my domicile. I planned this. It's what I want to do. So this temper tantrum he's pulling, but if it happens that he winds up getting his grievance through or whatever, I can you.
Next file name 2023.12.20 clip 5.
Wherever I can go and be. So hopefully everything will be situated once I get everything painted in the there's like little micro dots on the wall because where it wicked up a little bit that you don't want it to be mold. And since I did get certified as a mold remediation person, I would know something like that, right? That there's possible danger that could get worse. Aspergillus, just all kinds of different molds that can grow in that. But what do I know? I'm David Marshburn, right?
File name 2023.12.20 clip 6.
But I do have to get that water problem fixed, done, and over with so I can move forward.
File name 2023.12.20 clip 7.
I'm very sad that I could not move all my podcasting stuff there because of the water. Water and electronics don't mix. They do not. So
File name 2023.12.22 clip 1.
things. But excuse me. Let me give you an update on my abode. The first big room is done, and it seems like the moisture content is more towards the back of the house where we think it's dry enough to be able to put everything back in there so those little mildew spots don't come back and stuff. I think the moisture content, the ground's been pervious enough to soak that water up, and the heating and air being on, it humidified and dehumidified everything, got it all out. So thank God for that. And painting the walls and stuff doesn't help with humidity, but it needs it, and it's getting it. So got 2 more to go, 2 more rooms to go, and then I'll be able to lay it down. And I don't think I can take any of my equipment over there because I do not want to see any of this get ruined. This is expensive equipment.
File name 2023.12.28 clip 1.
And just because you have a R or a D behind your name will not change the outcome of what truly needs to happen. Bottom line. So, I am still running for school board. I am running District 7 because I do have a domicile in the town of Clayton. As soon as everything gets finished, that's where you'll find me. Every day. You'll find me here every day. You'll find me in Smithfield every day. Every day I'm all over, everywhere. So, I'm not going anywhere. And the best thing, and I mentioned this, and this is hard for people to understand and believe. I'm not a Democrat. I'm never been a Democrat, never sided with Democrats, never
Now, let me see one. Now, Coach, I have another thumb drive with one recording on it, which is made in this place. And we offer this in evidence as our exhibit. Maybe 6 or 7.
All right. So this is a different podcast? I mean, this is a different recording
Yes.
that's unaltered? That, see, we haven't had a chance to.
Was this, you testified previously about the manner in which you created this?
So, Your Honor, Mr. Two, that was downloaded from a separate website. I listened to Mr. Marshburn's podcast in the car on January 6th. Before I could get to my computer to download that, he had deleted the podcast. However, someone else shared it, reposted it, and I was able to take that off of line. But it is clearly Mr. Marshburn's voice and him speaking.
How do you know his voice?
I've listened to quite a bit of his content, sir.
Did you actually hear what was?
That was the second time I heard it. I heard it on his original podcast, and he deleted it, but someone else had shared the content. But I had heard it one time before.
From a third party, I don't think we can accept that as an exhibit.
Your Honor, with that, we rest, and thank you for your indulgence.
Yes, sir, thank you.
Just one question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Johnston, you testified in response to a question posed to you by Mr. Two that, and I think this is a quote, "I do not believe Mr. Marshburn is domiciled in Clayton." Is that right?
Yes, that's why we're here. Yes, sir. The candidate challenge.
No other question.
We rest.
Thank you. This time, is there any other person with relevant information that had been sworn in and that would like to give evidence for the board to consider? If so, please come forward. Or raise your hand. No, I need you to come forward and speak on the microphone. Is there anyone else? All right. And is there any rebuttal?
Nothing other's been already offered.
And is there any other additional evidence to be considered by this board? Mr. Hale, would you like to give a closing statement?
I would, if you'd permit me, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
And first of all, I want to thank you and your members of the board for the courtesies extended to us. And I have been in a lot of courtrooms in my life, and I will tell you that I know when people are paying attention, y'all have paid great attention in this case. Thank you. We're here to answer a question that Mr. Johnston said last week when we came before you on Wednesday when I asked for a continuance, that this is a very simple case. And it is a simple case. What we have here is one question to be asked. The question is whether or not my client, David Marshburn, qualifies to have a residence in District 7 to be a candidate in this election. Now, he's not the only candidate in this election. There's Mr. Johnston, and there's a third person who's filed, as I'm sure you know. Our burden is to demonstrate to you by a greater weight of the evidence, and that simply means more likely than not that my client does in fact meet the criteria under North Carolina General Statute 163-127.5. Three things. Number one, an actual abandonment of the first domicile. coupled with an intent not to return to that first domicile. We've offered you the driver's license of my client. He's testified here today that he has both an office and an apartment attached to that office on North 3rd Street. He's told you that he has leased that apartment out for 1 year, and he has no intent of going back there. Number two, the second thing, by the greater weight of the evidence, the acquisition of a new domicile by actual residents at another place. The testimony is he contacted Mr. Lipscomb on December the 7th, seeking a new residence, a rental. He wanted an apartment that was not available. Mr. Lipscomb and he met on that date. He accepted Mr. Lipscomb's offer of residing in this brick building, and as has been stated during the testimony here today, he has spent out of his own pocket at least $4,100 to improve that residence, because he had to do that to make it habitable, because the pipe burst and water was everywhere. Now, number three, and I think most importantly, the intent of making the newer domicile a permanent domicile. Now, I find it interesting that Mr. Johnston seeks to put before you these quotes. You follow the rules. You go by the rules. And that's what I am. That's what I did. I am a resident. I have a residence in his district, and I have already filed. I filed yesterday. The quotes in here is that I wouldn't be doing all this work if I didn't have the intention of staying there permanently. It's late. I'm so late getting back over there to do some painting, I swear, but anyway, let me finish. And don't you notice, too, in these clips that Mr. Johnston has caused to be played here today, we got to just wonder what came after that, or even what came before that. So he has offered evidence to support our contention that he, that is David Marshburn, has the intent of making the newer domicile a permanent domicile. Now, with all due respect, it's my contention that it is the legal duty of this board here today to determine whether or not Mr. Marshburn can run in District 7. And I would say in today's world, which is topsy-turvy, we should encourage people to run for public office. Some people like people to run, some people don't, but it is the American heritage that we have free, fair, and transparent elections. He qualifies by the greater weight of the evidence, what we proved to you here today. He gave up his residence on North 3rd Street. He leased it out. He had the intent to get a new residence. He made that application back in early December before he ever filed, and when he filed, he also had a lease in place. Now, that's what we have to demonstrate to you by the greater weight of the evidence. A lot of what Mr. Tu wanted to get into has absolutely nothing to do with the law in this case. Whether he owns other property, whether he's broadcasting a podcast from another residence, every person who has a job, especially small business people, they get up from where they lay their head at night and go to an office, and many times spend more time at the place where they work than what they do at their own residence. We have met, I respectfully submit to you by the greater weight of the evidence, the burden of proof on these three issues. I ask you to answer them in Mr. Marshburn's favor. Let the election go forward with him as a candidate, with the other two candidates, Mr. Johnston and the third person is running, and the voters will have the final decision who they want to represent him. And thank you again for your courtesies.
Thank you, Mayor Blue. I certainly appreciate, especially in the trying times that we have politically, your willingness to serve in this capacity and all of the things that go with it. Thank you. Here we have an issue, it's a refined issue, and that is, where is he domiciled? You look at the statute first. You're seated in a quasi-judicial hearing, and as such, you have the obligation of hearing admissible evidence, and based on the admissible evidence, making a decision. That decision will need to be written, and it will need to have findings of fact. So you're going to have to make those decisions as to findings of fact. As a finder of fact, you can judge, you are the sole judge of the credibility of any witness. You can accept all, some, or none of the testimony. So the criteria are actual abandonment of the first domicile, coupled with the intent to return, not to return to the first domicile. So where is his domicile? That's the issue. You have two components. One is a residence and the other is an intent. What is the intent? The intent is not to return to the other place. The acquisition of a new domicile by actual residence at another place. And then the third component, and this is the focus, is the intent. Now, I have put some legal authority in the notebook, and it is towards the, it's before exhibit number 1. And if you will turn, you will find the last page at the top, which says Memorandum of Authorities on Abandonment. And I ask you to read that, but essentially it is the surrender and cessation of property rights and the possession with the intent of not claiming it. And it goes on. The term includes intention to abandon the external act by which the intention is carried into effect, i.e. moving, and then, of course, the intent to remain permanently at that place. So the first issue you have to determine is whether or not he abandoned. And in making that decision, you need to consider all of the facts. The facts are, and I think it is relevant, 1, he's podcasting from his home. 2, for whatever reason, he has not moved into his leased premises. Number 3, the lease. If you're intending to lease something and you've got a 30-day rollover lease, how permanent is that? What does that reflect about his intent? Then you look at the places that he has access to. One is his business here as a private investigator, which, according to what he says, has been leased. We don't have a copy of the lease, so judge that as a part of what you are considering in terms of the credibility of the witness. So I want to go through, there is a, you turn back to the first page after the statutes here, and there's a case page that says Webb versus Nolan, and it's United States District Court in North Carolina.
Can you tell us what page that's on?
Excuse me.
We're having a hard time.
Webb v. Nolan.
Okay.
No.
It's right in the front.
And
About 4 pages in.
One of which one?
Webb v. Nolan is the first page, and then it says Hiram Ward.
We're there.
This case relates in a way to this. There was a woman who was a teacher in Mount Airy from California, and she had taught for a long time, but always went back to California. She tried to sue, let me see if I got this, a doctor in Mount Airy in Surrey County and get it in federal court. And in federal court, you have to have different residences. And so the issue here was whether she was a resident of Mount Airy, Surrey County, or California. And the court ultimately held, after hearing, that she was not a resident of California. But if you look at the second page, in the middle of the page here, right here, there is a following by the judge: in determining the essential elements of domicile, statements of intention are entitled to little weight when in conflict with facts. And it goes on to state the determination of domicile depends upon no one fact or combination of circumstances, but upon the whole taken together, showing a preponderance of evidence of a particular place of domicile. A person's own testimony regarding its intentions in respect to acquiring or retaining a domicile is not conclusive. Such testimony is to be accepted with considerable reserve, and even though no suspicion may be entertained of the truthfulness of the witness. So using that, judge the testimony and the credibility. We have a lease of short term. We have a home from which he returned, and that's where he was podcasting from. The next is an old 1883 North Carolina Supreme Court case, Hancock versus Grizzly. And the essence of that case, it was a challenge to the seating of an elected official, and the challenge had the same issue we have here. And if you look at the second page of that case.
Can you tell us where that is?
I'm sorry.
James Grizzard.
It's Hannon versus Grizzly. Up in the upper left-hand corner, it says Westlaw Classic.
Okay.
Okay.
And if you'll turn to the second page, at the second full paragraph, it begins, a person's residence is his place of domicile. The place of where his habitation is fixed without any intention of removing therefrom. Residence as used in the Constitution means a domicile in the county and state as long as the party has animus revertendi, which is the intention not to return. No length of residence elsewhere will change the domicile. In order to change, there must be not only an act, but a concurrent intention to make it. So again, the focus is on the intention. Then if you'll turn to the third case, and if you, I think, will read this, and I'm going to read some excerpts from it, but I think it is exactly on point. It deals with the United States Constitution change permitting 18-year-olds to vote. There was a Meredith College student who lived in Tarboro who applied to vote in Wake County, and after a hearing, it was appealed ultimately to the North Carolina Supreme Court, and it's Hall versus Wake County Board of Elections. And I'm going to read, proceeding on appeal from County Board of Elections determination that plaintiff was not entitled to register as a voter. The holding the finding that a student had abandoned her former domicile and had acquired a new one in place where she was attending college supported the judgment that she was entitled to vote there. Then, in the first paragraph, second paragraph after West head notes, it says the parties stipulated plaintiff was not disqualified to vote and that her eligibility for registration as a voter in Precinct 2 in Raleigh County depended upon whether she satisfies the residency requirements of the state's election law. So that's what we're dealing with here. Now, it's interesting, somebody either read this and gave him the information, or he certainly is a good person researching. In this case, the court found that she was a student at state. She was intending, or she stated her intent was not to return, but to go to law school or perhaps further education. And in that, at her lawyer's suggestion, she got her bank account established and to her student address. She got her driver's license established to her student's address. She satisfied the requirements, but I want to point out that there is a factual difference there. And if you look at the facts, you've got a generational history. John Ellis, his daughter, which is a grandmother, his father. So you've got a 4-generational relationship to the place where he lives and where his family owned property. And it has a tax value in excess of, I believe, $350,000 or so. What is it worth otherwise? There is no mortgage on that property. He is in his, in the house that he says his wife lives in, doing this podcasting. He makes reference to going to, in one of these, and I'll get to some of it in a minute, but things that would indicate that he can go back there anytime he wants to. And you look at the lease has, it's not a long-term lease, 30 days rollover. So he doesn't lose. I mean, if he doesn't win, he walks away, goes back home, he's got his office. We haven't seen that lease. So how do we know that the terms of the lease or what he says? And you all have to judge the credibility of the witness in deciding that. But in this case, and it was authored by one of the best Chief Justices of the Supreme Court, Susie Sharp. If you'll turn to the page and look at the bottom right-hand corner of the document, and it has the page numbers 3 of 6. Okay. And if you look at the second paragraph, it says, since 1868, our Constitution has required a voter to be a person who has resided in the state and in the precinct ward or ward for a specified time, and this court has held without variation that residence within the purview of this constitutional provision is synonymous with domicile. So in order to have a domicile, you have a presence, an intention not to return to your former domicile. So has that occurred here? Then it goes on to state in the next paragraph, precisely speaking, residence and domicile are not convertible terms. A person may have his residence in one place and his domicile in another. Residence simply indicates a person's actual place of abode, whether permanent or temporary. Domicile denotes a permanent established home as distinguished from a temporary, although actual place of residence. When absent therefrom, it is a place to which he intends to return, animus revertendi. It is a place where he intends to remain permanent for an indefinite length of time or until some unexpected event shall occur to induce him to leave. Two things must occur to constitute domicile. First, residence. Second, the intent to make the place of the residence a home. Goes on to state after the citations in the next paragraph, one who lives in a place for a temporary purpose with the design of leaving that for the purpose, when the purpose has been accomplished, is a mere sojourner. He retains his original home with all its incidental privileges and rights. Therefore, a residence for a specific purpose as a summer or winter resort to acquire an education or some other skill in which the animus revertendi, and that is the intention to return, accompanies a whole period of absence, affects no change of domicile. So it is a burden that he has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt.
Objection by a great weight of the evidence, not beyond a
Excuse
reasonable
me,
doubt.
by preponderance. Well, however you want to say, it is quite clear that the residence, when used in the election law, means domicile, which defines residence for registration and voting and incorporates the central law, the case law laid down in opinions cited above. The case here is dealing with a student, and the student carried the burden of proof. In the next to the last paragraph on page 4 or 5, it reads, a domicile once acquired is presumed to continue. It is never lost until a new one is established, and the burden of proof rests upon the person who alleges change. To effect a change of domicile, there must be, 1, an actual abandonment of the first domicile accompanied by an intention not to return, and 2, the acquisition of a new domicile by actual residence at another place. So his intent, let's say that he doesn't win this, he's not going to stay there, I would argue. And the intention of making required residence and a permanent home. Where is he sleeping? That's a critical part of this thing. Then he refers in transcript of video clip file 2314.12.14.1. I have a residence in the district and I've already filed. Then in the second one, he talks about looking up the legal definition of residence and domicile. Then file clip 231218 clip 1, he's broadcasting from his home. I've been here for way too long. I'm fixing to get off of here and enjoy some sleep. Okay, so you've seen the pictures that show the condition of his, what he claims to be his new residence. He didn't sleep there. His office is leased. He didn't sleep there. Where did he go? Where does he have to go? That's certainly, I think, significant evidence. And the second thing is, the next thing is file clip 2312.20 clip 1. I don't have to prove a thing. I have, let's see, I have 2 residences. There's nothing wrong with that. Then in clip 23.12.20 clip 3, I'm so late, I'm so late to get back over there. I want to do some painting, I swear, but anyway, let me finish. So where is he doing this? He's at home. Then clip 2023.12.20. This little grievance against me, if it holds up, I'd walk away. But I doubt it's going to happen because it's my residence. That's my domicile. I planned this. To sum it up, what is his intent? You've heard the law as it relates to the credibility of the intent and the weight that it should be given. You are the sole judges of the credibility of the witness, and given that, you make the decision based on the admissible evidence, which I believe that falls short of a preponderance of the evidence. Thank you for your tolerance. Thank you.
Do you have any final questions?
I do have a question. Mr. Marshburn,
Yes, ma'am.
I can't remember what you said, but can you tell us why you left the Smithfield apartment?
I leased it out.
But you had been there before that, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How long had you been there?
Since 2018.
Okay. And you just wanted a new place?
Well, I wanted to make a difference in the area I lived in for a long time, District 7, and I felt like I could contribute and make a better system than we have right now, and I decided to move in that area to do that.
Okay, you said the area, you wanted to make a difference.
District 7.
Okay.
We have no representation there, good representation.
I guess I'm confused.
I'm running for school board.
I know, yeah,
Right.
I know that. But I'm just confused. If you were living in Smithfield, you said you'd always wanted to make a difference in the place where you lived. Well, you were living in Smithfield.
What I'm talking about is my childhood growing up. My mother was taught for 30 years in the Clayton area. You know, since they've made districts, she's always been in education. And since the representation is not there in District 7, I want to go and help represent it. I want to run for that district. And that's another reason why I chose that area.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So what district is the Twin Oaks or Twin Acres?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No, ma'am. District 7 is my district. That's Clayton. I mean, I'm blue through and through. Comets, you know, Clayton Comets, the Eagles. I mean, it was still the old elementary school when I went to school there. So I'm drawn to Clayton.
Maybe Leanne could tell us which district that other residence is in.
Not off the top of my head, but I can find out.
Okay. And I have a question.
Do you know?
It's
Uh,
five, ma'am. It's
District
District
5.
5, yes, ma'am.
Okay. This is for Leanne or our county attorney. Are there any laws that specify how long a person has to live in a particular district to run for a local office?
No, ma'am.
Two questions.
Yes, sir.
Where do you sleep at night?
At 708 South Robertson Street.
And where are you registered to vote?
708 South Robertson Street.
Fine.
Yes, sir.
So you're sleeping at the Robinson Street address even though all the repairs have not been completed?
It's livable. I mean, I was in the military. I went on bivouac. There was a lot less there than it is here, but everything's back to normal except for the some of the plumbing issues is not finished.
Back to your statement about wanting to represent Clayton.
Yes, ma'am.
Why would you, I guess I'm trying to understand why you would choose to locate in another, in District 8, when you have history and ties in District 5.
I don't, ma'am. I'm always a Clayton person, through and through. It's so close, but I went to Clayton School from primary all the way to high school. And my mom taught 6th, 7th, and 8th. You go into the town of Clayton, you ask some of the older generation, they'll tell you. They either was taught by or spanked by her, one or the other. So, I mean, it's Clayton is home, basically. It's me, not Cleveland, not Smithfield, not Kenley, Clayton. Clayton is what I know.
But you never lived there until now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I grew up in Clayton. I mean, there was not districts then. It's hard to explain. There was never districts then, but I went to Clayton schools
Right.
So if you know, I don't know how the district thing is working with who goes to what high school and
Right.
so forth, but hopefully I'll get that point to be able to see how that operates and works.
You attended Clayton School.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Primary on up.
Okay.
Are board members on the school board allowed to speak to issues from another district, or that can they address?
For countywide.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it doesn't really matter where
But you have a representative that board member represents. So right now, Mr. Johnston does not represent Clayton. He doesn't have any assigned schools, and I feel Clayton has been neglected. Even though there's other board members, they have their own district. So now we need someone to represent District 7. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any more questions from the board?
Just to be sure, the clips that we saw from your podcast, those were recorded at the Twin Oaks?
Twin Acres.
Twin Acres, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
ma'am. The ones that were not shown were, well, one of them was at 708, or two of them were at 708 South Robertson Street, and the other ones were at 2095. But if you look on 4 years ago, all 4 years, 4.5 years were at 207 North 3rd Street. It's just recently, I've been doing it from the 2095. There's a designated room just for podcasting. That equipment has to stay super dry. I don't want to get electrocuted.
Okay. Are there any more questions from the board? Okay, before I close the hearing, we need to make a determination on the two motions that were presented by the candidate.
Your Honor, there's no,
Procedural
we're
reason
not
to do this?
pursuing.
Okay, thank you. At that, then, we will close the hearing for public discussion, and the board will now deliberate on testimony we've received, evidence and testimony.
Do we have a break?
Oh, you want a break?
Yes.
Excuse me there. Apparently, we need to have a little 5-minute recess, please. And we'll come back at 11:25, please. call this meeting back to order. And the board is going to start their deliberations. And who would like to go first?
Oh, I'll go first.
Thank you.
Okay. After hearing from Mr. Marshburn and his lawyer and looking at the evidence, I have a real problem with believing that there's been an actual abandonment of the first domicile, coupled with the intent not to return to the first domicile. And to back up my thinking on that, I would just cite Mr. Marshburn's own words from the podcast clip on 12/20. There are a lot of celebrities in this world that have two residences. There's nothing wrong with it if you can afford to do it. So I think that he's there already saying, I've got two places. But the one that he stays connected to, it seems to me, is the one on Twin Oaks Road, because he has said that he broadcast out of that address. He works on cars there. He says, I'm there a lot, even though he maintains that he and his wife live separately because of a health condition. But in that same podcast, he says, Starr is tickled to death to get a break from me. So it seems to me that indicates that the break is a relatively new thing and that it hadn't been ongoing. I could be wrong, but that's what the statement seems to indicate. Also, all mail goes to that address. His name is on the deed, which to me implies a very strong sense of not intending to abandon that residence. And then there's the month-by-month lease, which does not in and of itself imply permanence. So it's kind of like when a student goes off to college and they set up various places to live while they're at college, but they're always going to go home, and that's kind of what this feels like to me, that residence has not been abandoned despite the fact that he spent a lot of money on Robertson Street. So that's my thoughts at this point.
Just for the sake of
Certainly,
deliberation.
certainly.
The last thing you said was like a student. Well, according to what Mr. Johnston presented, they say that a student is eligible to vote.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we need to just stick to the podcast, in my opinion, are campaign rhetoric. They're just a lot of hot air, not meaning anything. That was my take on listening to them.
Right.
The fact that his podcast for 4 years prior to that were from North 2nd Street in Smithfield. And, that is the home place, Twin Oaks. But since 2018, he's been living in Smithfield.
Right.
Registered to vote, driver's license, all that other stuff.
Right.
Twin Oaks being like his studio where he goes. He hasn't abandoned Twin Oaks to the point of ownership. But I think as far as a residence, he has left Twin Oaks for a domicile. And as far as North 2nd Street, I think now he's left that in his represent District 7 in the school board. You know, it's not up to us to determine whether this alternate lifestyle that they enjoy works or doesn't work, or is
Right.
legal or illegal, but he says he intends to spend his sleeping where at Robinson Street, and he's registered to vote there. His driver's license, utilities are set up. It's not uncommon to have a month-to-month lease. I mean, if that's the way the landlord has it set up. It's beyond our purview to determine whether he's going to stay there 6 months or 66 months. I mean, he stayed at North Smithfield for, 5 years? And so.
I guess I can't dismiss the statement about 2 residences. You know, that seems like a sort of statement of belief about how things are, and he keeps referencing the rules. That's a sticking point for me.
Okay.
I'm kind of in agreement with you, Deborah. And the fact that he talks about getting a break sounds temporary. It doesn't imply permanence.
Yeah.
And although we have a copy of the utility bill, the water bill, but it ends December 14th.
Right,
So
we can't
we
see.
have no proof that he has been there since then to use water, and we don't have an electrical bill from Progress Energy or Blue Power since he's been there at the Robinson Street address.
But we don't have, that's not in our purview either, to see what the future holds. I mean, we've got to determine right now, is he eligible to be a candidate in District 7? That's the candidate challenge. And
I guess we're stuck on the permanency of it.
Yeah, because isn't that domicile has requirements of permanency, and
okay, according to Article 6, suffrage and eligibility to office. Section 6, eligibility to elected office. Every qualified voter in North Carolina is 21 years of age, except as in this Constitution disqualified, shall be eligible for election by the people to office. That was Section 6. So, in my mind, he's check.
can you read that again? It's not paying attention.
Yeah, that's all right. It's trying to establish his eligibility, because the candidate challenge is we're trying to determine if he is eligible to run.
Based
And-
on a residency requirement.
Well, first, based on whether he is, that's part of it. I mean, first he's got to be registered in that district,
Right,
which he is, so that's a check.
right,
Then is he domiciled in that?
right.
Well, to be registered, you have to be domiciled. Right?
But it does not specify how long you have to be domiciled.
There is no time limit specified in the statute.
And the requirements for registration are not as stringent as the requirements for residency. So somebody can register in a district with the intention to go back someplace else. But for purposes of residency, the intention and the actions have to be towards permanency.
What's the difference in being a mere sojourner?
Yeah.
Okay. According to the general statute 163-57, residency is defined for registration and voting. You can have two residences.
You definitely can.
And if he is establishing the 708, not, I may have misspoke, but the Robinson Street address as his primary residence, then, and with the evidence that he's shown, the testimony he's given about sleeping and registering driver's license and I mean, he is establishing that residence, in my mind, in permanency. And the lease is below market because of the tenant's willingness to do maintenance and repairs. I mean,
But
I can't imagine somebody doing something like that on a short-term basis.
And I can't imagine somebody expending that much of his own money for residence for a short-term basis. How would he recoup his money if he moved back to the other address permanently?
well, he said lots of people have two residences if you can afford it, and I can.
But again, it's not a question of whether he has two residences. We have to go back and focus on, I got too many cheat sheets.
I know, I do too. I do too. I keep losing my notes.
Mr. Chairman, the statute that you probably want to take a look at is 163-127.5. And that's the burden of proof section of the candidate challenge statutes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
$163, $127, you said?
127.5.
Yes, sir.
The burden of proof should be upon the candidate who must show by a preponderance of the evidence of the record as a whole that he or she is qualified to be a candidate for the office. So, if the challenge is based upon a question of residency, the candidate must show all of the following: the actual abandonment of the first domicile coupled with or intent not to return to the first domicile.
We don't have a lease on that place where he moved from.
That would be the Smithfield address, wouldn't it?
Well,
Or was that the other Clayton address?
no, it would be the Smithfield address.
Smithfield address.
I mean, he's testified that that's where he's been living for the last 5 years, and that's where he's registered to vote. And we saw his driver's license was entered into,
His first domicile would be the Smithfield address.
Yeah.
correct.
He didn't show us a lease, so he's not there.
Excuse me,
Well,
Mr. Chairman, as a
it's a
point of
test-
order, if you could speak into the mics,
All right,
that
it's-
would be helpful.
It's his testimony that he does have a lease, and all we can do is deal with what has been presented to us today and what's been relayed as testimony.
So what about the evidence of the property he owns at Twin Oaks Road and the fact that his family, his immediate family lives there.
Again, that's that alternative lifestyle that I don't think comes into it.
But there's property involved with his name on the deed. And he's not leasing it to them.
So is North Second Street. That's property in his name.
That he's leasing to somebody.
Well, he's more favorable to his family than he is to a stranger. I don't know.
So the property that has his name on the deed, it should not even be considered here?
Well, I would, not really, because that's not where he's moving from. I mean, I don't think so. And the second part is the acquisition of a new domicile by actual residents at another place. He's put sweat equity into it, he's put money into it, and he's got a lease.
So anybody with adequate resources can maintain a nice property where their family lives and go out and lease property in a certain district for purposes of an election and claim that that's their permanent residence.
Well, let's keep in mind that the school board didn't
They didn't have
change.
districts.
Right.
Yeah.
They didn't adopt, that's the word I was looking for.
Right.
They didn't adopt school districts until 11/15/2023.
Right. Right.
So, again, this is speculation. Why wouldn't he have been able to, going backwards, like you're saying, why wouldn't he have been able to run at large from the county-wide before they did the districts? So, did the adoption of districts require him to move? And a recent case before the state board of elections allowed a state senator to move from one district to another.
Right.
And, I mean, that was on the news.
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah, and I know the.
and I guess what you're talking about is candidates hopscotching from district to district.
Right.
I mean, if they follow the guidelines and the law, I would say, yeah,
Yeah,
they can.
they can do that.
Difficult decision.
Do what?
It's a difficult decision. It's not.
Well, I guess we just go back to those 3 points. And that be actual abandonment of the first domicile, coupled with an intent not to return to the first domicile. So,
I would feel better if I had a lease to show me that he'd abandoned it.
we don't have it.
I know that. So we can't use number 1. Because we don't have that.
We do have his driver's license that says he was living at North
Robertson
Third
Street.
Third Street.
But all the
No,
mail
North
goes
Third
to
Street.
Twin Oaks.
All my mail goes to P.O. Box 1524.
Well, that's not a residence.
I understand, so that's why I'm saying a delivery address for mail is, I don't think it's anything we can hang our hat on because.
Well, it's one of the standards that defines a domicile according to the statutes. I mean, where do you have your bill? What's your billing address for like credit cards and bills and things like that and all of those?
It can be anything.
Yeah. But yours goes to a P.O. box. His goes to not Smithfield
To Twin Oaks.
or Robertson, but Twin Oaks. So what is that? Just,
His bookkeeping.
That's his billing address.
What? That's what he testified to, that he keeps his personal stuff separate from his business.
he's got a business, right, in Smithfield?
Right.
Well, that seems where you keep your business stuff. You know? I mean, it's a question of if, I mean, what is the Twin Oaks property? I mean, is it just a place where he gets his mail
And his studio.
and his studio and his
and-
car?
And his shop,
Yeah,
which wouldn't be any different than, say,
and his family.
right,
I'm just trying to figure out what it is. You know, if you're gonna be so quick to dismiss it as nothing, what is it?
it's a P.O. box.
Equating that to the P.O. box, mailing it, as
Yeah.
his mailing address as a P.O. box.
It's a P.O. box with a studio, a car shop, and his family. I mean, I'm just trying to, what would a reasonable person think
Sure.
about this, you know?
So, along those lines,
Yeah.
that was the same as when he was living at North Second Street. So, are you saying that he would have been ineligible to run
In
in
that
district
district.
because of,
Well, there might have been a question, you know? I'm not saying that he was, but, could have been. Yeah. Again, I'm just trying to figure out what the Twin Oaks
How it
property
comes into
is.
play.
I mean, you know. In terms of,
I
yeah,
don't,
you don't think it's relevant?
I really don't. Not in this instance.
Okay.
And that is, where does he reside to run for the office he filed for, which is a candidate for the school board in District 7?
Curious.
And I don't mean to be on you, I join.
No, this is great.
Yeah.
This is great, 'cause, I mean, it's the only way to clarify
We can
my thinking
flesh it
about
out.
this.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and if I remember correctly, and maybe you've got your notes, Mr. Marshburn was married in 2018, and he's also been residing at the,
He's married
No,
before that.
No, he was married before that.
okay,
In 2018,
is when he
moved
to,
to North Third Street.
okay. Okay. Okay, well, I guess I'm just still stuck on the podcast statement. It sounds like he's claiming 2 residences, or that he made a claim about 2 residences there. And
Was it? How so? How did he make the claim of 2 residents? Well, I mean, I think he did say that. You're right. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, there's
About if you're a Hollywood star, they have to.
yeah, there's nothing wrong with it if you can afford to do it. And then,
Again, I dismiss that as campaign rhetoric, slang use of the definition residence. Did he mean houses? Did he mean?
It's just,
Yeah,
It's
two
just-
properties. I got two houses. I got one here and one at the beach.
I know, but you're not,
And I don't have one at the beach. So don't ask you.
it
that was
just,
her next question.
it comes across as a residence of convenience.
Mhm.
And, you know,
Which one, you mean, the one on Robinson Street or the other one?
The
Come back
Robertson
between us.
Street.
Robinson Street.
yeah.
Well, I would say yes, it is, because he has a nice studio environment already set up there. He's got his workshop set up there, so. I just don't see. With what was been presented to us, and we got to boil it down to just that question, and that question with these three criteria.
What was number 2 again?
The acquisition of a new domicile by actual residents at another place.
And number 3?
The intent of making the newer domicile a permanent domicile.
That's the sticky one for me.
Well, he just said that he does, but we don't know whether he
Yeah.
is serious.
We don't have a crystal ball and can't see into the future.
Yeah, I would still contend that according to these criteria, that the North Smithfield residence was not his actual domicile. It was a second residence.
Which in this case would be the first domicile.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Well, if you're saying that Twin Oaks,
Twin Acres.
Twin Acres, all right.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry.
Green Acres.
Yeah. Dun-dun-dun-dun. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Would have been the first, and then you said the second. So then this is the third,
Right.
but it's the previous.
Which would be the second street.
The second
on the third
street
street.
was the previous domicile.
It was a second residence. Maybe not a domicile, if a domicile is what you permanently return to. I think we're going to be stuck on this question of what is the role of the Twin Acres property in this.
Ms. Hooker, if I may, you can glean some information with regards to, at least for purposes of registration and voting, what a residence is from 163-57, and I think that is some of the material that Mr. Johnston may have cited in some of the materials that he provided to you. And there are a lot of sections to that, but it talks about habitation being fixed and intention to return, which is sort of, let me get to the mic.
What was the statute number?
163-57, and I'll keep in mind that this is for registration and voting,
Right.
not necessarily for the candidate challenge, but I think that there are some things that are instructive about that, about how you keep a residence, how you lose a residence, those sorts of things, and there is a portion in there, if you look hypothetically, if you look at subsection 10, it talks about the establishment of a secondary residence by an elected official outside the district does not constitute prima facie evidence of a change of residence, which I think is what Mr. Shawcross was referring to, the beach house scenario.
Right.
And then you've got one thing that I did want to point out to make sure that the board was aware, is that for purposes of voting, a spouse shall be eligible to establish a separate domicile. So don't allow that to be the sole consideration. Certainly, you can look at the totality of the circumstances, but that in and of itself alone is not enough to, is probably not enough to support that preponderance of evidence based on the whole record.
I think I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it was 10 and 11. So does that help you separate the two?
Give me a minute.
Sure. More discussion?
Okay, I think I can wrap my head around the fact that if he resided, according to the evidence of his driver's license, his business address in Smithfield for 5, almost 6 years, and then moved to Robertson Street. I can see how you could understand that as first and second domiciles. Which is what you were talking about, right? Considering, I mean, just not even considering the Twin Oaks property.
Yeah.
Can we have a stipulative ruling? A stipulative ruling. If we totally do not consider the Twin Oaks property, then, yeah, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
If we can only consider the evidence that he has a place to live and he's changed his license, is that what you're saying?
That's the evidence that's been presented. I mean, and the lease, I mean.
Can I ask what definition of domicile again?
There's a couple of them.
It was, yeah. Go back to,
Domicile denotes one's permanent established home is distinguished from a temporary, although actual place of residence.
Okay.
the place shall be considered the residence of a person in which that person's habitation is fixed, and to which, whenever that person is absent, that person has the intentions of returning.
And that's the residence.
Subject to the following, yeah.
That's the residence.
This is where they actually live, whether permanent or temporary.
I mean, there's also the question of the fact that while the Robertson Street residence has been being renovated, Mr. Washburn has been presumably residing at Twin Oaks.
Whenever that person is absent, that person has the intention of returning. So,
Well, you stated that he's been living at the Robertson Street address.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm sure when there was no water or whatever, he wasn't staying there, but he did testify that he is staying there.
It says, one who lives in a place for a temporary purpose with a design of leaving, when that purpose has been accomplished as a mere sojourner, he retains his original home with all its incidental privileges and rights. Which would seem to me to be what Twin Oaks offers. Okay, John, you're smiling right. I mean, what would you call it? A post office box?
I mean, it wouldn't be any different than if he had that same setup down Buffalo Road from his office. He's living at North
Third
Street. But he has his studio, he has his shop, and family land. But he's not residing there. Which is the way I viewed this when he. And I'm not saying one didn't beget the other, but you're eligible to do that.
You can do that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because there's nothing in the statute that says you have to live in this district, 7, for the school board for 90 days or
Right.
1 year
Right.
or whatever. Now, there are stipulations for governor and
Yeah.
House of Representatives
Yeah.
and different things like that.
Yeah.
But there isn't anything for local elections like that.
And that's all we can do.
Well, that's, you
Do
know,
what?
That's all we can do then.
yeah, yeah, if there's no length of residence requirement, then poof.
I mean, you can move and register
And, and change your driver's license
and become a resident.
why didn't you say that earlier?
I didn't realize that was the answer.
Okay, all right, question answered then.
And how about you ladies?
I think even though we may not like the way it is, it is
That's
what
the way
it
it
is.
I was just gonna say, we don't have any say in that.
No.
What do you-
So the real sort of deciding factor here is there's no requirement for, okay.
Length of residence?
Mm-hmm, okay. I think are we in accord?
Okay. Yeah, after hearing the evidence, the law requires us to make a written decision of findings of fact and conclusions of law based on the information we received. We're proceeding under 163-127.5. And members of the board, if you have any more comments or questions or anything you'd like to say, feel free to do so at this time. And then we need to proceed to a decision on what we've heard and how we should proceed from this point. So is there
No more questions.
last chance? Okay. We're ready to entertain a motion. And
I make a motion, we accept the residency as has been shown to us.
I think
Is that how?
the term would be, I'll call on our counsel to,
How do we make this motion?
I do not want to put words in your mouth because I want to be sure I understand what you are attempting to do, but your choices would be to deny the challenge or to sustain the challenge.
All right, is there a motion to deny?
Make a motion that we deny the challenge.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, are you ready to vote? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? The motion carries. We have, we'll have a written order.
Yes, that's what I wanted to talk about, what your next steps would look like. The rules require that you adopt a written decision for this, and typically when we have these come before us, we draft a decision for your consideration that is consistent with the action of the board and with your deliberations, and then we get that to you, you review it, and then you take action on that. So you do not have another meeting that is scheduled within the time frame in which we need to get this done. So my suggestion to you would be, if it is at all possible, that you recess and you allow us the time to get that order, a draft order, drawn for your consideration, and that you reconvene so that you can consider and take action on that written decision. 10 after 12. You tell me when, and I will have something done for you. You know, no, sir, not 12:15. That is not possible. But you know, whether it be that you come back late this afternoon, this evening, or you come back tomorrow at some point, let's talk about what that should look like for you.
We have a regularly scheduled meeting tomorrow.
Okay, you could
Is that correct?
reconvene for the purpose of considering that order tomorrow. What time is that meeting?
4 o'clock.
Okay. And what's the location of that meeting?
On 3rd Street, 803.
Yeah, the satellite office.
801 South 3rd Street.
And for all candor with the public at that location, we are not in a position to live stream. If all you're doing is deliberating and discussing the order, your decision has been made. I don't know what the board's thoughts are about that, but the meeting obviously is open to the public, for the public to attend.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
Can I say something?
Please.
You need to come to the mic, Lynn.
In reference to our meeting tomorrow, I hadn't planned on having one, because we did this today. But we can,
Okay.
We've
If
got
you're all
that.
available, we can recess and you could come back.
Just come back like 2 or something.
Do you want us back this afternoon at 5 or
Or earlier.
earlier?
what, tomorrow, we've got laptops spread out all over down there.
But we can do it,
We can do it
here.
We could do a meeting here, okay, that'd be good, because I do have some things I need to go over, but that was.
So if I understand correctly, we're gonna come back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock.
Is staff available?
Is the room available?
Yes.
The clerk is available. I don't know about the technology staff. Are you going to tomorrow?
Yep.
They say yes.
Okay.
Okay. And then you're changing the location of your regularly scheduled meetings
No, there
here.
wasn't one scheduled. Yeah.
Okay, she didn't notice the meeting. Okay.
No.
There wasn't one on the calendar.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear for the record and for the public, for purposes of the open meetings law, that we were all on the same page
Right.
about everything. So what the intent then would be is that you are going to recess and come back here tomorrow At 4 o'clock.
Correct.
Is that correct?
All right, we'll stand in recess till tomorrow at 4 o'clock.